Hello and a very warm welcome to everyone present here. I'm Shreya Bhandari and we're here at the beautiful TCS Banyan Park campus where compelling ideas meet cutting-edge technologies. Today we are here with the leaders from Cummins. TCS and Cummins has shared a partnership for almost 3 decades and we're delighted to have you guys here for a quick chat. I'll quickly introduce our power-packed panel here. We have with us Earl Newsome, the Global Chief Information Officer for Cummins. We have Annapurna Vishwanathan, the India CIO for Cummins, and accompanying them is Rakesh Devpura, the TCS Head for Manufacturing for Americas. Welcome once again and thank you so much for making time for this.
Thank you.
Earl, I would like to start with you first. You've been part of global technology firms, and how would you say has your leadership evolved over the years?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I'll start off with just kind of describe my leadership journey. Right. The way I break it down is the kind of 3 tranches, right? My first 10 years, I was in the military. I'm actually a West Point graduate from West Point, which is the United States Military Academy, and I spent 5 years in the U.S. Army. In my first 10 years, what I've learned, about leadership, as being a leader of soldiers, is really probably 3 things. The first one is about taking care of soldiers, right? And taking care of soldiers doesn't mean coddling them. It means making sure that they're equipped well, trained well, and practiced well. Right. Because soldiers that are equipped, trained, and practiced well tend to come back from battle, with least harm. And I've taken that forward in my entire life. And when I think about employees, I think about people. I think about we have to take care of our people. And we got to make sure they have the right equipment to get the job done, no matter what that job is. Absolutely. We got to make sure that they're trained on the effective use of that equipment. And then we got to give them a safe place to practice and learn on how to use that equipment most effectively. The second thing is, I believe, is that there's a concept which I call 360-degree leadership. And this is about strategic leadership, technical leadership, and tactical leadership. Strategic leadership, in the military vernacular, is learning which hill to take. So how do I point my organization, whatever that organization is to which hill are we going to take? What problem are we going to challenge? Which opportunity are we going to use to thrive on? And then tactical leadership is about learning how to take that objective safely, right. What steps to take. Right. In the military vernacular, you want to choose the right path. Same way in business. And last is about technical leadership. And technical leadership is about rolling up your sleeves and helping along the way. Right? And so I believe really effective leaders practice 360-degree leadership. Right? And that's about really understanding which hill to take, which hill to attack, what's the safest path to take that hill, and then getting in there and helping the soldiers win the battle. And I do that every day. And lastly, I think this idea about being a soldier is really, there's a concept in the US, and there's one commercial that kind of drove most of the people to come to the military, and that is be all that you can be. And I'm a big believer in giving people challenging goals, right. Stretch goals, because when you do that and you challenge people to be all they can be, then they can be the very best versions of themselves. Absolutely. And then from 10 years in the military, I spent 10 years in consulting. Started at Anderson Consulting all the way up to being a partner in Deloitte & Touche. And when you think about consulting, all you really have is a billable hour to sell, right? You guys are in the services business. We have a billable hour to sell. And if knowledge is your capital, people are your resource. Right? And so you got to believe in growing the people. Absolutely. If you grow the people, you can grow your business, right? And so growing people and growing business. And so that's the leadership lesson I learned, from my days in consulting. And lastly, I spent 20 plus years now in corporate America, ending up here at Cummins, the global industrial manufacturer. And in these 20 years, what I've learned about leadership is really about what I call being a quad deep leader. I think really great business leaders are quad deep. And by quad deep, I mean really investing in 4 fundamental disciplines. Number 1, business intelligence, knowing how does your company make money? How do we deliver the value in the marketplace? The second is about industry intelligence. That's how do you compete and win? Knowing your competition and thriving against that. The third one is actually technical intelligence, right? Just being a master at your craft, really being good at whatever it is, whether you're a technologist or you're in HR or you're legal. I want you to be the absolute best of that you can be.
Right.
But lastly, even more importantly, and probably most important of all, is emotional intelligence. That's how people think and feel.
Absolutely.
And so throughout my entire career, whether it's 10 years in the military and taking care of soldiers, whether it's about consulting and people being your resource, or whether it's about emotional intelligence and being a great leader, I realized throughout each of those careers, it's all a people business. And so leadership, my fundamental leadership philosophy is meet people where they are.
Beautiful.
And then move them along to where you want them to be.
Oh, that's just beautifully put. Thank you. Annapurna, you've been responsible for designing as well as implementing some interesting IT transformation strategies across organizations. What would you say are the core values you follow when it comes to leadership as well as decision making?
See, when it comes to digital transformation, right, at the heart of it is a business need.
Right.
The business needs to, there's a need that you have to solve for. It's not technology for the sake of technology.
Absolutely.
So that's where a journey begins. The second thing is that the business needs to be ready for it.
Correct.
Right, and what I've seen across my career is that you may have the most beautiful piece of technology that can do wonders for the business, but if they're not ready to embrace it, nothing works.
Absolutely.
And the third is that you have to help the business realize value for it. And what I've observed over the last, I think, 10 odd years, especially where I was focused on business transformations, is that when you apply this combination and when you stick to this combination, and you start speaking the language of the business, there's a lot more resonance in understanding digital transformation. And so you're a part of a business team, you're solving something that they're trying to solve for, you're in there with them, and that's how you achieve the kind of transformations we've been able to achieve.
Super, super.
Can I jump in on that? I think
Please.
One of the things that, and Anu knows this, and we've talked about this idea, is there's two paths to being successful, or two paths you can take to try to be successful in business transformation. And she was spot on when you start out with the business outcomes. And I have this little, what I call the path to success. And it starts with business outcomes. And then you follow on to that saying, are we asking the right questions? Do we have the right KPIs to ensure we're going to deliver that business outcome? Then we ask ourselves, do we have the right process to sustain the answering of those questions? Then do we have the right people and skills to actually execute that process? Then are we equipping those people with the information to get that process done? And then do we have the technology to help that happen in a much faster basis? That's what I call the path to success.
Absolutely.
Begins with outcomes, it ends with technology. But often we find people who want to start the other way around. I call this the hope path. You start with the technology because you have this big fancy thing and you hope that you have the right thing to do. Then you say, well, maybe I have the information, maybe I don't. It's very hard to get. Then do I have the right people? Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to use the people I have. Then I say, do I have a process? Well, as a process 20 years ago, we're going to try to automate a bad process, right? And then we don't really measure anything well, and then we hope for business outcomes. That's the hope path. And so this idea about how we do leadership and how we do transformation, I just encourage everyone to think about that path to success.
Right.
Have a much higher degree than the hope path, right? And so, wonderfully said.
I completely agree. Rakesh, considering how growth is kind of consistent only once you have the right innovation and creativity in place, how do you ensure that your team is also thinking creatively and innovating constantly?
So thank you, Shreya. And if I look at both Earl and Annapurna, what she mentioned about that, for me, in the service industry, the customer is the most important thing, and how we drive the value, what their business needs about that part. So the most important thing is like how to build this customer equity, working very closely with them. And it has three elements, if I call about that part. What is the value equity? The value equity is like when you are working with the customers, you have to understand the entire, both the challenges as well as like how this business is going on, and how you constantly challenge our team to make sure like every part what they are doing it, how they can create a value which tied back to the business needs or the outcomes basically. So that's the one fundamental value equity. The second important part about this customer equity building is about the relationship, because we are dealing with many customers, end users of my customers basically. How they are perceiving the value what we are delivering to them, how the experience basically is coming to them more than any of the contractual obligations, because ultimately at the end of the day, this matters. The third important element about this part is the innovation equity. And it has three elements. The one element is like today what we are doing it. Are we constantly looking at challenging our team to bring the innovative ideas and all? At the same time, we are looking from the tomorrow and the blue sky in terms of like what the future needs are going to be there. Again, everything in the context of my customer basically, what they are looking for, are they ready for that, or are they going into that particular direction? How to bring all the dimensions and start building that kind of thing.
Super, super. I honestly think any conversation with techies where we do not mention AI is an incomplete conversation, considering how much Gen AI is reshaping businesses across industries, honestly. So Earl, if you could kind of shed light on, especially when you consider the manufacturing value chain, where do you think Gen AI can make significant contributions, say, in the future?
Sure. As you know, I'm going to tell a story. So
Please, I think that is, we are going in that direction.
Yes, right.
It's getting interesting.
So when I think about generative AI, I think about it this way, and I go back to the movie Terminator. I think it's Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. And in Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, the character, the John Connor character is going to try to stop Judgment Day.
Right.
Right? And so, you know, he builds up this kind of explosives, and he goes to this bunker, and as he enters the bunker, and he's going to, okay, I'm going to stop Judgment Day, and he walks into the bunker, and he sees all these old computer equipment, like there's paper tapes and punch cards. Now I know I'm dating myself because I use those things, but that's yet another story. But you know, when we walked in, and he says, I'm going to stop Judgment Day, and he realizes that he's in this old computer bunker, and then he thinks about why he's in that bunker, and he says, you know, maybe I'm not meant to stop Judgment Day, I'm meant to survive it, right? And that's the way I think about generative AI and this, you know, fear of AI, is that we're not going to stop AI.
Right.
I don't even believe we're meant to even just survive it. I think we're meant to thrive with AI.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so it's a thrive opportunity, and I actually believe in what I call collaborative AI, which is AI plus human beings, makes us exponential. Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's about collaborative AI and making humans exponential, making each and every one of us the best version of ourselves, the most productive versions of ourselves. And so with my belief of this idea of collaborative AI, yes, there's going to be replacement AI. We know that there's going to be labor that's going to be lost. But if you think back, you know, to Andy McAfee talks about this in Second Machine Age, and that you know, back in the early 1900s, the number one manufacturing capability or technology was steam engines. So how many steam engines are there left right now? I mean, maybe 2 in, you know, that are in some museum somewhere.
Correct.
But they all got replaced by electric motors.
Sure.
But those electric motors actually led to job explosion and job growth versus job loss. And so I think AI is going to do the same thing.
Makes sense.
There'll be job explosion. And so that's why I believe in this notion of collaborative AI and AI making us better. But we have to be wary about the ills of AI.
Absolutely.
And the ills of AI is that it can be wrong, right? It can hallucinate. It can be biased. It can use copyrighted materials, etc. So what we've done at Cummins is we've said the antidote to all of that is a human in the loop.
Absolutely.
So we actually mandated human in the loop for all of our generative AI solutions, that a human is going to be responsible for reviewing what the AI puts out. Because the AI doesn't send anything out, you do. Right?
Exactly.
And so you own what you put out in the world, and I often talk about the hammer. The hammer can either break a window or it can build a home.
Absolutely.
But the hammer inherently doesn't break windows or build homes, even though I used to tell my mom that the hammer broke the window, I didn't. But the reality is the wielder of the hammer is the one who controls how it's used. So the wielder of AI is going to control how it's used. And so when you asked about how we might use this in manufacturing, I think there's really 5 kind of top level use cases that I think about that manufacturers and organizations can think about with AI. The first one is, I believe, you know, I talk about this exponentiality, is this notion of a co-pilot for everyone, right? And by co-pilot, I mean like coach, assistant coach, right? Somebody who's there to be by your side to help you be the best version of yourself, right? And so there'll be a co-pilot or a coach or assistant coach for everybody from the line supervisor on the factory floor to the CEO. Everyone will have a co-pilot, and it'll be role-based and trained and give you the information that you need to have to be the best version of yourself in the moment. Then I think the second thing is what I'm going to call AILD. And that's moving from ALD, analyst-led design, to AILD, where we're going to be using generative AI to create scenarios to give you simulations of network performance, let's say a supply chain network, or factory performance, or line performance, or even machine design. And so all of that stuff will be enhanced by AILD. The next thing is going to be hardware, software productivity. Engineer productivity, so every engineer, hardware and software engineer is going to be more productive with AI. I mean, we've actually seen some amazing results across the world, you know, with technologies that are helping software engineers. I mean, I've seen numbers from 20% to 200% more productive. Wow. That's about being exponential.
Absolutely.
You know, we're going to make ourselves exponential. The next, I think, use case is going to be around how do we transform and do some intelligent summarization. And making our meetings more efficient. You know, everybody's using now AI, and it's becoming commonplace that AI shows up at your meeting, right? And takes the notes for you, so you can actually focus on the task at hand and make connections with human beings without worrying about taking notes, because the AI is there to take the notes for you. So we're going to see lots of intelligent summarization. We all get the email with the 50,000 forwards, so now I can summarize it. and it actually really works, and it helps. And so I think that's the way of making us individually more productive and driving intelligent summarization. And the last one will be this idea that we're going to transform the way we connect with customers. Today, you know, and deliver customer service. You look at the, some of the, documents, and if you ever tried to go, even YouTube or try to solve a problem for you. You have an engine failure, or you have a failure of a piece of equipment in your house, or you're trying to figure out how to make, chicken biryani. You can now go Google, use generative AI and find that custom recipe that will help actually walk you through the steps on how to do something. So the nature of how we deliver service is going to change completely, and it'll be personalized, individualized for you. So that's the way I believe that generative AI is going to actually fundamentally transform the way that we operate in our industry, and will actually make us all exponential.
Super, super. Would anyone else want to add to that in terms of where Gen AI could, actually make changes for the manufacturing sector?
No, absolutely. One of the example what he has given about like the plant operator, if we can talk about the plant operator today, whenever there is some breakdown happen, some changes are required, they look at the manuals, they look at like all these kind of thing, and then they figure it out, which losses of the productivity, the entire assembly line. Absolutely. But with the Gen AI, you can just look at like all these information which are there, which is the kind of a problem which has happened in the past, just by looking at that by step process actually.
Absolutely.
And which we have seen like the implementation in the one of the plant right now, and it's completely a change of the game actually.
And for me, my aspiration with Gen AI is that reports and dashboards go away, that it's conversational analytics, For me, the technology lover in me, it breaks my heart when there is somebody on a plant floor who has to build a dashboard.
Right.
They should just be enabled to ask a question, and so let them do what they're good at doing, and they shouldn't have to do technology. Absolutely. And so that's where I would love for the world to head faster. I know we're headed there, but let's get there faster.
Super.
I would add on to that. Sorry. I think there's an interesting thing, because I think AI will come to us in many different ways. And so individual companies, we're going to build our own solutions built on internal capabilities, which is going to, do what Anu said and what Rakesh said, this idea we're going to actually be able to build custom solutions around our data. I think also our suppliers, are going to be able to bring AI to us, right? Whether it's our off-the-shelf suppliers or our partners are going to be able to bring us some accelerators, which I look forward to. Then there's the stuff that's available in the public. Right. We know that there's, at last count, there's 850 models or something, and these small models, big models, large language models. I mean, the proliferation of models is going to be, it's amazing. And you're never going to keep up. And so that's why, for Cummins, we are working on how do we make the maximum value out of those public models and use those things to help make us better. How do we work with our partners to bring to us innovative AI solutions? And then what are we going to build ourselves? all three of those delivery mechanisms are going to be fundamentally the way that we're going to be exponential.
Absolutely. Wow. Annapurna, if you could also kind of highlight, what are the challenges that manufacturing organizations are facing today, and how could they leverage, say, digital transformation to kind of address these challenges?
So maybe I won't talk about challenges, but I'll talk about how do we think about it a little differently, right? So when we think about IT, we are information technology.
Right.
What I often find is that people focus on technology, but if you just switch it and you focus on information. Right? A manufacturing company has so many, there's so much of operations in it. Right from your supplier to your manufacturing to how you send your logistics and then your customers and your customer relationship. There is so much of flow of information across that entire value chain. Now, if you were to focus on information, which is essentially manage the flow of information and therefore right information at the right time to make the right decision, there is so much of business value that can be unlocked. So one of the things that we are very, very focused on at Cummins is how do we really enable that information flow? And what that means for us is that you have multiple systems, you have individualized, localized systems that each are responsible to do a certain job.
Yeah.
But the reality is that no one system or no one job is an isolated job. It's a series of jobs. And so how do you start getting information to flow and not be localized? And the more we are able to get to a point where it flows exactly mirroring the flow of a business operation, we are closer to nirvana with information. And so that's aspirationally where we are headed. It's one step at a time. We've been at it for a couple of years. We've made some significant progress, but we intend to stay down that path to get there.
Super.
Can I jump in on that one too?
Right.
I love this. she inspires me so much. Right? When I think about that, and I think about, there's a couple models that I'd like to challenge us to think about. And for those of you who are listening, this idea of DIKW, right? So data, information, knowledge, wisdom, right? And DIKW, so data is just data. That's the scanned, unclean data, right? You organize it, you create information, you analyze it, you create knowledge, and then you interpret that and you create wisdom, right? So I think we should be in the business of creating wisdom engines, right? And so how do we turn data into wisdom, right? And I think AI is an interesting way of thinking about that, right? And what you talked about, this idea about information at your fingertips, you should be able to ask it any question and then for it to give you wisdom. And I think this idea of creating this model, I've heard it called the ladder of business intelligence, but data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And I think it's a great model to try to how to turn data into wisdom. Right. And I think that's really powerful because I think as technologists, it really helps us to really, and I call it the question-based strategy. And how do we really create a question-based strategy to get value out of information and give value to our stakeholders? Right. And the way I think about that is that there's questions that our customers, our colleagues are asking today, right, that they want better answers to, right? So that's the first question that you should use to go find out how to give value to your customers. What question are you asking today that you want better answers to? Right. Like they may get a report that only goes back 3 months, they want it to go back a year. But they've never been able to do that because it took 8 hours for that report to run. To have it do a year would take 10 months, right? So they're like, we won't do that, right? But now with technology, we think we can give you that year-based report or year-over-year report. But that's a question that they're asking today they want better answers to. The second question we should ask them, what questions have you always wanted to ask but were afraid to, right? Because they didn't think IT could do it, right? Now, I think with the new technologies and with partners that we can answer some of those questions. So bring those questions that you've been afraid to ask, bring those to the forefront, and let us help you answer those questions. And lastly, I think there's some questions that they should be asking that they aren't asking because they don't know to ask. And that's the value of benchmarking and going out and seeing what others are doing. And through our partnerships, we can find those questions. As we come to places like this and we experience, here's a question that you guys have answered that we might want to have asked and we didn't know to ask. And so this idea of expanding our horizons by doing the go and sees and seeing those interesting questions that are being asked by others and then applying it in our industry can be a game changer.
Absolutely. Rakesh, if you could kind of focus on the workforce and what can organizations or what should organizations do to ensure, that the workforce is future ready, especially when we talk about technology? I mean, if you could also kind of highlight what TCS is doing in this.
Yeah. So before that, I'll just answer on what Annapurna and Earl is talking about, that the entire information flow and today's world, how fast we can go to the customer and get the feedback and then make these changes in my design to make it like very iterative way. We call it a digital thread from the inception design to the last part, right? So that's one of the most important element, how we can work on that part. Now the question is regarding like the workforce today, how they're relevant to the changing needs of that part. If I look at in the last 5 years, the kind of technology changes which are happening is enormous actually. So what we make sure, like every associates who are working over here, they are constantly learning the trends, the technologies what are coming up. One is like the learning about that part, and we are enabling them through the platforms what we provide them at this point of time. So just an example about the GenAI. Our CEO put that very clearly the day one, make sure like our entire organization has to be trained at the basic level of the GenAI. And the second thing is like all the leaders should be more familiar with the GenAI with the right kind of use cases. So at this point of time, the workforce around out of 600,000, 300,000 people have gone through the GenAI kind of a training actually. And that's one of the constant like of things are going on. What is important from our workforce perspective, because the technology will keep on changing, how to make sure like each and every person who are working over here, they are relevant to the technology trends rather than I go to the market every time and hire the skills. So that's the model or the business model what we have to constantly look at for the people to be trained actually.
Super.
I want to jump onto that one too, because I believe that this idea of it's our responsibility to retool and retrain our workforce. I mean, we are the leadership of the organization. It's our responsibility. As I talked about, this notion of economies replacing economies. If you think about it, the world was primarily an agricultural economy. Then it went to an industrial economy. Then it went to information economy. Then it went to a digital economy, and now maybe an AI-based economy. And when you think about these evolutions of economies, right? The previous economy always required less labor to support it when the future economy happens, always, right? But that means that we have to predict, to future-proof our organization and future-proof our people and future-proof our population. We've got to prepare them for the next economy. And so I think I love what you talked about there, and making sure that everyone in the workforce is prepared for that future economy, because it's going to be AI-driven, AI-enabled. So that's our job, that's our responsibility, to future-proof our organization, future-proof our populations by preparing them to participate, not only participate, but win in that next economy.
Absolutely. And if you could also highlight, Earl, how much do you think diversity kind of, impacts the overall success or the culture of an organization?
This was something very near and dear to my heart, and I love the concept of diversity. And in fact, I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 things. First, from a Cummins standpoint, one of our former CEOs, J. Irwin Miller, is famous for saying this. He said, if we only recruit from a subset of the population, we are only doing ourselves a disservice. Right? So if I recruit from only 40% of the population based upon whatever criteria you want to pick, right, I'm leaving 60% untapped. That only hurts me. And so from his perspective, he said, let's go after 100% of the available population. That's why Cummins is very, very focused on operating and working in and creating a diverse workforce, because if we believe, if we go after 100 of the available population, we will get the best talent, and that will allow us to win.
Absolutely.
Right, and so I'm very, very focused on going after 100% of the available talent. And I believe once we have that talent on board, we have to really focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I use this kind of story to talk about what that means to me. Diversity is like being invited to the dance. So yeah, you're diverse, you get to come in. Equity is actually having access to the dance floor, right? So I've given you a ramp or whatever you need to get on that dance floor. Inclusion is being asked to dance, right? But belonging is wanting to dance as if no one's looking at you. And I personally am eager to create an organization of dancers, right?
Right.
I want everyone in my organization to dance as if no one's looking at them. Because if people are dancing, if no one's looking at them, that means they're being their full selves.
Absolutely.
You know, you're able to bring that extra energy.
Right.
You know, you're able to, you know, do that extra thing. And if I can earn that discretionary labor, imagine the thing that we can create. Imagine the magic that we can win and deliver as an organization. Imagine we can truly be all that we can be.
Right.
Right? And that kind of, you know, gets me to one of the things that we do at Cummins, which I think is really fantastic, is we really explore what's our purpose in life. You know, kind of why are we here on this planet, right? And my purpose is this, is I'm trying to build a world without limits so people can be all that they can be while delivering some magic all along the way, right? And so
Absolutely.
I try to build an organization up and build it with a new set of skills to future-proof it so that in fact, there's no limits to what you can do as an
Right.
individual, where you can go, what you might achieve, right? And if I build that world without limits, then you can in fact be all that you can be.
Correct.
And when you're doing that, you're going to create some magic. I guarantee you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Annapurna, you also led a lot of women's networks, you know, across organizations, and I believe you're also passionate about mentoring the young talent across India. What are, like, you know, the key principles that you kind of follow when it comes to mentoring the youth?
So the way I look at it is that, you know, there have been amazing women leaders who've tread this path before me. And every time that I've felt, you know, that there's an impediment or there's a slowdown in the way I approach my career, I've drawn strength from seeing what they did, from hearing what they told. And so, you know, it's a little bit of, you know, trying to pay back, right? Trying to pay back. And, you know, sometimes what I've observed is that sometimes it's challenging because you need to be vulnerable, you need to be honest. And so one of the things that I do is that I very often talk to women and share my journey, and share my journey with all of the twists and the turns, all of the road bumps, all of what went on through my mind at that point of time. And what I've observed is that whenever I have done that, there has been some resonance. And in that resonance, people have found strength. And with that strength, you know, if even I'm able to influence one or two people to get over the hurdle that, you know, they're facing in that moment, I'd be grateful for that opportunity. So that's how I approach this.
Very, very beautifully put.
Can I jump in on that too?
We've left the option open after every question. So please do not ask, go for it.
I just wanted to compliment Anu on really what she's achieved. And to me, the definition of leadership is followership. Right? If you think you're a leader and nobody's behind you, guess what? You're just out there on your own.
Right.
You're not leading anything. And Anu has created amazing followership.
Thank you.
And I'm going to testify that some of her folks have said to me, she is super, super amazing.
Thank you so much.
And she lifts them up,
Thank you.
even when they've gone through challenging times. And she's made them feel better, feel welcome, and feel as though they actually belong.
Thank
So,
you so much.
thank you for that followership that you created based upon your leadership.
Thank
Fantastic.
you so much. Honored for the statement. Thank you so much.
I think just the qualities a leader should kind of show. So beautiful. Rakesh, what are, say, some strategies for ensuring consistent service delivery and support when you consider a global concept, like context here?
So if I look at the philosophy of our company is to retain customers, and our repeat customers basically is almost 98%. And the entire organization strongly believe in you have to invest time with the customer, listen them, learn from them, and then apply what is required actually. Okay. One particular part is like the global standards basically, right? When we are working with, like, for example, Cummins, doesn't matter whether it's India or UK or the part and all, everywhere the customer should get the same experience. If there is a feedback, we are getting it, how to implement that feedback and apply that kind of thing. In this entire particular part, in this entire relationship, the most important thing is like you are listening them and you are applying that, what the feedback is coming up, and make sure like you are elevating those kind of service level. And that's what I strongly believe, because our existing set of customer should not move out at all. And that's, I think the philosophy has been laid out by our founders, and then we are following that kind of thing.
Super, super. 26 years is no mean feat. So Earl, if you could kind of shed light on this partnership between TCS and Cummins, and we'd also appreciate if you can share a couple of anecdotes about the same.
Sure. As I thought about this question and I thought about how I might approach it, I'm going to approach it from a Tata Cummins perspective, in that we've had over 30 years of our relationship. In fact, we renewed our relationship last year as an organization, and Tata and Cummins have come together. We've actually co-created manufacturing facilities, we've co-created trucks, we've co-created opportunity, and I think that's the way I think about our opportunity here. Our relationship is opportunity, right? Between the various Tata groups and TCS being one of them, in that there's an opportunity because of the relationship that we have at the parent level, the relationship that we have at the TCS level, the relationship that we have at the various levels of your organization, is that I believe that there's opportunity. And so that's the, sort of the anecdote that I would say, is that, Tata has a lot of great inventions. And I often think about innovation as this. It's the intersection between invention and business idea where there's value, right? Where there's a business outcome that we can walk on. And that's the opportunity I want us to explore. In fact, our previous CEO had worked with us and to try to look for that intersection, to try to find that opportunity. So I'm just encouraged that, from our visit here, let's see if we can find that opportunity where there's an invention that TCS has had or created. There's a business idea that comes from our organization, an outcome that we want to create. Let's look for that intersection, that opportunity, and find the value, and then go push that button and go deliver something with it.
Super, super. And Rakesh, if you could also kind of, highlight some of the key aspects or key areas where this partnership between TCS and Cummins has kind of created an impact.
No, absolutely. And I started looking at this relationship around just 8-9 months back. And I knew about this relationship for a very long time, but I was always looking at how I can get this account as a part of my portfolio. And when I met Earl first time, and before meeting Earl, I did all my research and that kind of thing. Like when I'm meeting him, I should be ready with what kind of questions can come up, and then I need to be that part. So this relationship is very unique. The value system of both the companies are equally matching kind of thing, right? And this is the fundamental thing, right? What your value systems are there. On the basis of that, the foundation has been built up. Last 25 years plus kind of thing is a true partnership. Sometimes ups and downs keeps on coming, but I think always the companies don't treat like they are the suppliers or kind of thing. They're just an integrated part of that part, right? That's the one very unique differentiation what I've seen in this partnership. As a part of how to nurture this kind of relationship, we have worked very closely with the business stakeholders, the IT stakeholders. We started looking at the problem. Just an example about the warranty part, the warranty fraud system, when we realize so many warranty fraud claims are coming up, and there's a massive manual effort goes into that part to find out whether it's the real or is the fraud and all, right? Then how the technology can play an important role, how this entire value chain is working on that part. Some success we got so far. At the same time now with the Gen AI, how we can move to the better kind of thing, right? So that's just an example, but these are many such kind of interventions we keep on doing, and we just question ourselves, are these enough actually? Can we do more and all, right? So that's how I look at this particular partnership.
Super, super. Just to conclude this session, we cannot let you both go without hearing your TCS Banyan Park itself is an experience, but you guys were also at the EBC today, and if you could kind of share your overall experience or some key takeaways from today's session.
Sure, I'll begin, and I just want to compliment you all in this beautiful facility. It's a legacy facility, and just the beauty that's here, and I think beauty can be inspirational.
Absolutely.
Right, and this idea, we saw the story, kind of how TCS began, and kind of how it initiated, the progress that you guys have made. Right now, I've seen some of the, again, some of those inventions that I talked about where you guys have helped to solve problems for individuals. I think the most beautiful thing that we can do, and the reason why I make trips like this is I want to go and see something I wouldn't otherwise see. I want to meet and talk to somebody I wouldn't normally otherwise talk to. And I believe, we're going to be able to achieve both of those things, right?
Right.
See something I wouldn't otherwise see, meet and talk to people I wouldn't otherwise talk to,
Right.
and participate and share thoughts. And I think that's the value of being here. And that's the most important thing. And then see and witness the beauty that is this place. It's comforting.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Annapurna, your thoughts?
So for me, it's the second time I'm here.
All right.
And despite it being the second time, I'm still absolutely blown away by the beauty of this place. I am from Mumbai, and so seeing a place so beautiful in the heart of Mumbai is, it's a privilege. So thank you for that. And, in our roles, we're constantly looking for inspiration. We're constantly looking for those ideas that can ignite our minds, give us a spark in the eye, a jump in our step, and help us do more for our businesses. And so every time I've come here, I've gone back with copious notes on everything we can do.
She needs work for her team.
Yeah, my team isn't happy. But, we'd really like to thank you for having us here and, for sharing all the wonderful work that you've done across the country, across all countries. And it serves as inspiration in many, many ways.
Super, super. With this, we come to the end of this very, very interesting and beautiful chat. I once again would like to thank all of you for making time for this session and sharing such beautiful stories from your personal journey, as well as this beautiful partnership between TCS and Cummins. Rakesh, if you want to add some concluding thoughts to this.
No, thank you, Shreya, for having this session and the great thoughts. Every time I interact with Earl and Annapurna, it's a great new things are coming up.
Right.
And the leadership style about Earl being in the military, US Army, and then sharing a lot of things. I think it's a lot of inspiration, a lot of learnings, a lot of thoughts is there. So definitely, and thank you very much, Earl and Annapurna, spending your busy time. I know a lot of other events are there. In spite of that, you are able to spare one day over here actually. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for the invite, and thank you for the beautiful conversation.
It was a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.